Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Piqued, a meetup for electronic music makers. I'm your host, Corey Luna. On AV is Rich Hogben. And our featured artists tonight are Xibalbá and the duo Pure Phase and Visual Witchcraft, presenting Drifting. Each artist will perform a 30-minute set back-to-back, followed by a group interview in the second half of the show. And if you're following along on YouTube or on Twitch, you can ask us some questions for each artist. I'll be sure to field your questions, make sure that everyone has a share voice that's heard, and make sure that we get a great perspective from each artist. And this is really exciting because we've got Xibalbá's new album, which I'm not that great at pronouncing. I'm sure she'll correct me later on, but I'm going to try anyway. I think it's a Naturaleza Muerta. I'm probably pronouncing that not great, but hopefully she'll correct me. So we're really excited about that. Xibalbá will play first, followed by Pure Phase and Visual Witchcraft. I'll send up some links here and there for their music here and there, and we'll also have it presented during their streams as well. So please feel free to say hello and have a little chat in between during the sets, and let's get into the music. So Xibalbá, if you are ready, we are ready for you. All right, I'm on mute.
Xibalbá, danza en el Xibalbá.
Wow. Xibalbá, everybody. That was so good. Anna, thanks so much. How are you? Oh, I think you're muted. So, everyone, I really hope you enjoyed Xibalbá. We'll have her on in just a sec when she gets the mic ready. But hey, there you are.
Yeah, 1 sec.
Cool. You got a great response. Of course, Mile and I were listening at home. She loves your music, and I'm glad that she was a shader. I forget his name.
All the things that go wrong.
Someone asked about. Oh, Shader Monkey asked for the Spotify link, which I didn't know about. So I'm glad he asked because I didn't know anything about that. So I only listened to you on SoundCloud. So good thing that we have some other places as well.
Yeah, I just put stuff on SoundCloud first because it's free and anyone can listen to it. But yeah, I've got it on Spotify and other places too.
Very good. Well, we're gonna go into Pure Phase and Visual Witchcraft. We'll have you back on after them, and we'll do a group interview, and I'll ask some more in-depth questions about your set, about your about what your inspirations, things like that. So be ready to for some questions.
All right.
But it's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Again, Mila loves your music. I think everybody loves your music.
Oh, I'm so touched. Thank you.
And thanks for playing first. Appreciate it. Milo was excited about that.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad.
Cool.
I'll see you on the other side.
All right. So now that we're going to the upside down, we're going to go into Pure Phase and Visual Witchcraft. And they have prepared a set called Drifting, which is a series that they've been doing on YouTube for a while now. And they've prepared a set for us tonight. Rich, when you are ready, please go ahead and cue up Drifting.
I'm visual witchcraft.
Not pure phase.
Oh, that's cool. Drifting by Pure Phase and Visual Witchcraft, everyone. That was fantastic. That was a great energy change from the high energy we had from Xibalbá down to the nice calming waves of Drifting by Pure Phase and Visual Witchcraft. That was really fun, guys. Thanks so much for performing. I had this weird idea of calling you Guitars and Laser Guns, which is a Homestar Runner Strong Bad reference.
Love it. There's probably some subconscious Homestar Runner influence in my brain.
I'm glad to hear that. Cool. So, wow, Matt and Emmy, thank you so much for coming on Piqued tonight. I really appreciate you guys coming out. And Anna, it's great to see you as well. This is Anna's second time on Piqued. Anna, you were on Piqued in 2020, I think, when we first did the lockdown shows.
Yeah, that was a while ago. It feels like yesterday, though.
Yeah, it really does. So we've got some questions here, and I'd like to start out by asking all of you, what is your inspiration for your music? And let's go to Xibalbá first. Anna, what inspires your music, and specifically, what inspired this album? Where did this come from for you?
Yeah, I guess. Well, my music is informed by dance music. It's not necessarily dance music. I don't know if it is, but I'm a big minimal house fan, and I kind of like that style. So it just kind of comes out like that. Like sometimes I do purposefully try to make a track that sounds like that, but most of the time it just comes out naturally. The album is inspired, I guess, by just wanting to get feelings out. You pronounce the name correctly, by the way. It's Naturaleza Muerta, which translates to still life. You know, like those paintings by the old masters where you see, still life. Yeah, it's kind of got a dual meaning. For me, that this, the pandemic isn't over. And my life since everything went down has kind of been not on hold, but just kind of on in limbo, I would say. And a lot of the songs in the album reference that feeling, whether it be from a book or a movie. Like there's one track that is called Limbo, and there's a sample of a woman saying the name of this town, and that's based on a book by this Mexican author who wrote magical realism. So he writes this book, and it's really weird. It's a really weird book. The characters in there, he doesn't know what's going on. It's just kind of like people are alive, but they're not, and they disappear and they come in and out, and he's stuck in purgatory. So that's where that song came from. And the other one that I played that says, dance in the Xibalbá. The Xibalbá is the Maya mythology. In Maya mythology, the Xibalbá is the underworld. So when you die, that's where you go, and it's ruled by these gods, and there's skeletons, and there's a river you have to cross, and all these things. But it's where you go after you die. And there are some murals where you see rulers dancing to get into the Xibalbá. So that's kind of how I feel. It's kind of like commentary on what's happening in the world right now. It's sort of like everything's unraveling, but we're still dancing. So yeah, I think the whole album is either based on things like that, that kind of get those feelings out.
Thank you. That's really good. From your explanation, I feel that there, with how the pandemic has affected you, it sounds like there's a form of paralysis that has affected your life.
Yeah, well, I'm, TMI, but I'm immunocompromised, so I can't really go places freely. Like, I mean, I wear a mask everywhere, so now I feel, because they're done with them, right? So it's kind of, I feel awkward when I go places, so sometimes I just rather stay home. But if I really want to go somewhere, I'll put on a mask and not care. So yeah, I mean, there's tons of people like that, right, who are still cautious about, and I haven't caught it yet, I don't think, but I don't want to I don't want to see what happens. So I'm just, erring on the safe side and waiting it out. If there's, I don't know how long it's going to be, probably never, but yeah.
It's definitely still with us. I know that the majority of the world has disregarded it, but it's still there. My partner and I, we still wear masks everywhere. We still have K95s for whenever we go outside. I wear one to work, and she wears one outside as well. And even when she travels, she's wearing one. And those, from my perspective, those do work.
Yeah, they've worked for me. So, I don't mind if people aren't wearing them. I don't care. But for me, I just, I'd rather not add more challenges to my health. Let's put it that way.
Well, thank you. That's a great insight into to the inspiration of your album.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much where it comes from. It's just kind of like putting all those feelings to music, and yeah, I mean, all this stuff is happening, but we got to hold on to the things that make us happy. For me, it's music and my cats who are, while I was playing, they were all fighting under the desk. So that was fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Great. Well, let's go over to Matt and Emmy. Tell us about your inspiration for drifting, and what does drifting mean for you?
You want to go first?
Sure. So yeah, when the pandemic started, we both kind of lost the outlets that we had for performance, and we're thinking of something that we could do from home. And that's sort of where this project was born out of. So we started streaming it from our living room. And I'd say a big inspiration for both of us, and definitely for me, but I'll let Matt speak to his musical inspirations as well, is the dream house that Lamont Young and Marian Zazila created in New York, which is a drone space that also has lighting design that's intended to sort of let the viewer and listener go on their own journey. And I had the privilege of getting to go to the dream house. I think, unfortunately, it's been closed now, indefinitely, maybe forever. But it was amazing. You could really lose yourself in there for hours and not even realize, just sort of bathing in these very soothing drones and in this beautiful lighting environment that Marion had designed. So that's a huge inspiration. And then I'd say another big inspiration for my visuals for this project is the work of Coral Morphologic in Florida. It's a marine biologist and a photographer, videographer who've paired up, and they're documenting the remaining creatures in the coral reefs and making these really amazing portraits of what happens underwater. So yeah, the jellyfish that you maybe noticed are a huge inspiration for me. I love jellyfish, so definitely drawing some inspiration from the deep sea.
That's really neat. Unrelated, a friend of mine from high school, he's been working with reintroducing coral reef and specifically sponges into the coast off of Indonesia. So
Wow.
he's a scientist, and he actually does. He's been doing like hour-long dives recently, where he is reintroducing and maintaining live sponges growing in in that area that are native to that region.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Super important work.
So thank you for letting me know about this space in New York that unfortunately might not exist anymore, and the inspiration of the jellyfish. That was again, like, I'm always excited to hear about those sorts of things, as nature is all around us, inspires all of us, and it's something that I think all of us are always curious. Most of us, I would say, maybe are really curious about. If we aren't scientists, then all of us have some type of curiosity that brings us back to nature, which, why we have zoos and natural history museums and interesting podcasts like Ologies.
Absolutely.
And Matt, please tell us about your inspiration for drifting. What does drifting mean to you?
Yeah. So like Emmy said, we were trying to figure out, both felt pretty creatively stifled. We had just moved to San Francisco when the pandemic hit, and I had a show booked at Milk Bar with my solo project, which is more of like a rock band type thing. Still electronic based, but guitar focused, although I guess drifting is becoming that too, musically. And so we were just obviously bummed that everything kind of was paused. And the more I worked on music, also apologize for any weird dog sounds. Our dog is
Like
tripping out right here. Yeah, as I was working on music during the pandemic, I just felt myself getting more and more in my head and feeling like losing confidence in myself. And and this was a way, because it's all improvisational. I mean, there's a certain amount of work that goes into like setting up modular patches and maybe sampling some things, but it's still a relatively improvisational performance. And that was just kind of don't eat those tater tots. That was just kind of a nice way for me to like let go of all of that insecurity and like being too in my head. And just a way to like be creative and sort of get back out there. Even if it was just a few people watching, it was really fulfilling and a way for us to connect as well. When I used to play music, she would always do visuals, and it was always this really special thing. Musically, I feel like the thing I draw from the most is Stars of the Lid. Like, I always sort of come back to them when I want to perform, just almost like floating, ethereal synth stuff, trying to replicate like strings and horns as much as possible. And yeah, I mean, as I've gotten older, like I grew up on hardcore bands and punk and stuff, and as I've gotten older and my ears have decayed, I just find myself gravitating more and more to ambient music and trying to figure out my part in that as well. Yeah,
Thank you. That's interesting to hear a bit of your background in the hardcore punk scene, and also your inspiration for wanting to capture like horns and strings in your contemporary music. And for me, that kind of resonates one of my inspirational bands from that I first heard in the '90s, but they date back to the '80s. A band called Laibach from not, Eastern Europe, and I can't remember the name of the country right now. But I'll remember a little bit. Laibach always incorporated horns into their music, and from what I understand, I don't know if they were using live samples or real horns in their compositions, but it was always something that inspired me because they were one of the few industrial bands that use horns, and a lot of industrial bands don't use horns. It's something that I've noticed again and again, but their style is very unique from their perspective of the world, and and also I think that's part of maybe a bit of their that's their culture, part of it anyway, of music that comes out of that area.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll need to check them out. That sounds really interesting.
Definitely. Now let's jump on over to Anna. I was curious about how has using two OPZs changed your compositions, and when did you start incorporating two OPZs?
Um, well, it's a it's a device that it's just an incredible device. I think it's not perfect, but it kind of gives you it gives a non-musician a way to make music, and yeah, I think when I got the first one, it was just like, oh, how does this work? I mean, the interface isn't intuitive at all, but once you get the hang of it, it's you can get really creative with it. So, but like I said, it does have some limitations, and I wanted to play sets like this. And with one OPZ, you kind of have to, if you're finishing a track, you kind of have to stop the track and then start the other one. So I got a second OPZ and a mixer, and then I hooked them up, and now I can, compose one song on one, and then another one that will match the beat and maybe change the mood or complement it or whatever, and then switch to the other one, and and so on. I have made songs where I compose one track on the on one OPZ, and then I use the other one as supplemental uh, percussion or whatever, because now you have double of everything. But I haven't recorded anything yet. It's still a work in practice because they're not synced up. I just do it all manually, so it has to be kind of precise. And yeah, I struggle a lot when I record tracks because all the tracks on my album are recorded live on one, like it's like one go. So if I make a mistake halfway, I have to stop and start over. So yeah, to record one track, it takes a long, long time. But yeah, having two is great. One is enough, but
Very good. Thanks for letting me know about that. It's I I love what teenage engineering does. Where hardware is amazing. It's extremely over-engineered, which is really cool, but also brings the price tag up a lot. But it's still really cool what they're doing. I love what they do, and I have yet to dive into an OPZ or an OP1 or the OP1 field. But I'll eventually get there on my own terms, of course. But I love what you do with it. What you are doing with it I have not heard anyone else do. You have a unique sound that I haven't heard anywhere else.
oh wow, you're gonna make me blush.
Very
Thank
cool.
you. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's the non-musician making music.
That's really cool. I still remember when Rich first told me that he gave you an OPZ, and it's really wonderful to see how you've made it your own. It's really cool.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, thank you. It's the thing that I like to do the most with it is record. I don't know. I used to do a lot of field recording, like record, random stuff like the freeway or, different things around the house. And I incorporated that into my tracks. And I don't think I would have done that otherwise if it hadn't been, if this hadn't been my first device. But it just lends itself to make all sorts of things. It's pretty neat.
There was a fellow by the name of Joel Shoemaker in Napa. We had him on Piqued maybe last year or so, maybe the year before, and he also uses the OP1, and he uses the recorder on it to make samples, and he says it's the only sampler that he has, which is the OP1, and he just travels with it and just records things like you said, like the freeway or whatever, and then he'll mix those into his tracks and manipulate them in the machine itself. Or is that something that you're doing as well with like the samples you have, with some of the audio samples you have of the different voices in there?
Sometimes. So if you look at it, it has like the microphone is like right here. Is it? Yeah. So you can, just hold it up and record stuff. And I have done that, but sometimes, there's noise in the background, so it picks that up. Usually I just have my hand recorder and then, record there and then upload it to the computer and then put it on the OPZ.
Ah, very good. Thank you. And let's jump on over to Matt and Emmy and your furry friend.
Yeah, he's fully joined this
He
interview.
wants to be included in that, and we all love pets here.
Thanks for being understanding. Sorry, I've been distracted by him.
So I'm curious to know. So my friend Lenny Hamaker, who's also known as Otto Leon, he wanted to know what reverb or delay did you use for your composition in drifting. He said it sounds phenomenal.
Cool. That's awesome to hear. One of the synths I was using was the Super 6, and I'm just using the built-in delay on that, which sounds really amazing. And then everything else, some of the drones are from the Moog Matriarch, and I'm just using the built-in delay on that one. And then everything else is running through Eurorack, and I actually, like the good consumer that I am, bought those new Qubit modules, the Aurora and the Nautilus, and so everything I think from the Eurorack, which is my vocals and like that FM Bell thing, and synth is all running through that. Oh, and then my guitar is running through the Chase Bliss, like 2 Chase Bliss delay pedals, and
wow,
their reverb as well. So the answer is many delays and reverbs.
Fantastic. I'm really excited to hear that you're using Chase pedals in there. Those are really cool. Our friend Dorian Gunnels, who's known as Need for Storms, who performed back when Piqued was a live show, in person, I should say. He had a set of Chase pedals. Chase Bliss was one of them. And I remember him using that one consistently whenever I would see him perform at different places, like Resonant Frequencies. He always had that one pedal always in his a variety of pedals. So I'm glad to hear they're using that one. That's still one I recommend to people today who are looking for a nice like reverb delay sound.
Yeah, they sound really great, and they have like the dip switches on the back, so you can like basically modulate anything with an LFO, so they can get into kind of like more experimental territory, which is really nice. So like I have a few of them, but each one is just super flexible, and they sound amazing, which is arguably the most important part.
And that's really great to hear that you're using the new modules from Qubit, the Aurora, and I forget the other one you mentioned. But I'm really glad to hear that because John Wells, who does Modular World, works for Qubit, and he's been making videos about the different modules. And in a recent interview he did on Podular Modcast with Tim Held, he specifically talked about the new modules and how the previous modules, even he was confused on how they worked at first, but once he started playing with them, he was able to get them to work. But the Aurora and the new line, he said, have a much user-friendly interface.
Yeah, I got both. I think they arrived Monday this week, and I haven't looked at the manual yet. So I think that's a testament maybe to the usability of them.
Wow.
They're definitely like complex and deep, I can tell, but I was just like, I'll just twist some knobs until I get something that sounds nice. And they were kind of set and forget, which I think is underusing them. But yeah, I really like the way they sound, especially the delay one. It's got a bunch of wild tones that I've never heard.
Fantastic. Emmy, tell us about the gear you're using to create your visual art, your video projections. I'm curious to know more about what type of hardware you're using. I know that within the modular world, there's a lot of different modules that are also used for audio as well as visual. But I still have yet to dive into the visual aspect of modular myself. So please tell us about what you're using tonight.
Yeah, sure. I actually haven't delved into using any of the sound modulars that can go video. So that's definitely an area I'm excited to explore one day. I don't know if I'd call it my primary instrument, but kind of my primary instrument is the Vidiot from LZX, which is amazing. I love it. I think they're not making it anymore, which is really sad because I wanted to get another one. But yeah, that's a really fun piece. And then I like to do an analog mixed with digital approach. So for this, I pulled in footage of jellyfish. And then I think I was just using my video mixer of the Roland mixer, the V4. And yeah, I think that was it. Did I use anything else for this?
Did you use any of the Critter and Guitars?
I don't think so. I also sometimes will bring in the Critter and Guitari ETC and the newer version of that, but I didn't this time. Yeah, for me, like my favorite part about doing visuals is the tactile process of improvising. So it's really important to me to have hardware. Like doing fully digital visuals is fun in its own way, but I don't know, I don't connect to that as much. So yeah, I think my favorite part is just being able to feel into the music and follow along using some knobs and patch cables. Yeah.
Cool. It was really fun seeing how you're manipulating the video during the set. And I assume that you're creating these visuals simultaneously that Matt is performing, or are you doing that afterwards?
Yeah, simultaneously. It's all improv. So I really try to like follow along with the sound. Like it couldn't exist without the sounds that he's creating, because I really am trying to match the visuals to the music as we go. So yeah, it's all kind of on the spot.
Very cool. And I know that you did mention that because of the pandemic, you really haven't had a chance to really explore much in the Bay Area yet, but have you been able to go out to any shows recently this year, or participate in any performances?
Haven't participated in any. We've been to a few shows.
Yeah, I've been to a bunch of shows, but like we've been trying to get out to Gray Area a lot. We've connected with stuff there a ton. And then a lot of shows at like the chap, like we end up going to shows at the chapel pretty frequently. But haven't found out about, or like figured out I guess the areas where like our music exists. And kind of like this, like it's so cool to see Anna play, and this event that you're putting on. Like this is sort of what we've been looking for, so it's, you know, an honor to play it. And
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been Piqued has been a really fun project that Rich and I put together in 2019, and that was like, for me, that was probably one of the best things I did in 2019, was co-create this and curate the musicians. And at the time, I was really involved in the scene of just like going to the shows, performing at the shows, and talking to everybody already. Simultaneously, I was doing a podcast that I haven't kept up with. I stopped doing it after a year, but basically I was able to take some of the people I had already interviewed from there, bring them onto Piqued to have the interaction of a live audience, because all the podcasts I was doing were pre-recorded just by the artist and myself. It was never a live thing. So it was really a great transition to go from doing the podcast to doing Piqued as a meetup, is how we really started it. And I still view it as a meetup. It's been such a wonderful way to talk and get to know so many different people. And even though we haven't been able to do it in person that much anymore, it's been a really wonderful avenue to talk to people outside of the Bay Area. It started out as a Bay Area based meetup for electronic musicians, so that we could really bring the community together in a unique space. And there was already, and we already had Resident Frequencies and Resident going on, and those are still happening. But it was a different form that Rich and I created. And it's been a really interesting thing to be able to reach out to different people in different states. And we've even reached out to at least maybe 1 or 2 different countries in different time zones. And that's been such a unique thing. And I've been able to actually meet a couple people here and there from doing the show online, and then actually meeting them in person, either usually at some type of show that they're performing at, or we just happen to be at the same time. So it's been a great communication tool as well as a way to feature unique music.
Yeah, that's super cool.
And so I thank you again for coming on, playing the show. It's always wonderful to see what everyone is doing, and to me, that's one of the most wonderful things about music, and also about visuals, art in general, is that we're all using similar or same mediums, but we all have a different perspective on how we're going to use those tools to create something unique.
Yeah, I really
Absolutely.
like that.
Like when I started getting into modular, there was a brief conversation of people saying you shouldn't share your patches because people could essentially, maybe steal your music. But once you really get into modular, you realize that's not going to happen. It's it's not like playing chords on a guitar,
Yeah.
where it's like you would have to know where those knobs are turned besides where they're patched into each other. It's just there's just way too much chance of randomness that to try to figure out how is that one artist creating that sound. It'd be ridiculous.
Yeah, I think even if like somebody could replicate like the exact placement of your knobs or the chord you're playing or whatever, just like the uniqueness of individuals' experience or whatever, like the next thing each of you is going to do is totally different anyway. So yeah, I know that we both definitely struggled with that as well, like not wanting to give away our gear secrets. And it's just like, even if people had the same stuff we had, like it's going to result in totally different art.
Yeah, I definitely feel that a little bit with video because there's just fewer pieces of gear on the market. I mean, a lot of people are creating their own, which is amazing. And I wish that I had those skills maybe one day. But yeah, that's when I first started getting into it. I was like, oh no, there's not that many video synths out there. Like, what if someone copies me? And then I got over that. And yeah, like you said, we're all using the instruments to do something unique and like put our own spin on it. So
Yeah, from my perspective on modular is, if a lot of people are using the same equipment, it's because there's something in the design that's really good, and the sound is really good. It's not so much that everyone's trying to create the same sound, it's that this is a reliable piece of hardware that people have found to be inspiring.
totally agree.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like when I see the same, say I'm looking at something on Instagram and I see a lot of the same module in different racks, like something from Mutable Instruments, it's because it's well designed.
For sure.
And that it's a reliable piece. People find something unique in it, and they can build on that and incorporate it into their system that they already have.
Sorry, our dog is making a lot of noise over here again.
Don't know if it's picked up. Yeah. I mean, even like you were saying before, Anna's use of the OPZs, I mean, it's such a unique sound from it. And like so individual to that set, which I think is such a testament to like individuality's connection with an instrument. Like they all kind of do the same things ultimately. Like there's only so many like basic waveforms and things like that, but we all come from totally different places, and yeah, that comes out through it.
I agree. I've tried making music on Ableton. I'm learning how to use it, and it's just not the same. There's just something about punching the buttons and making patterns and the tactile aspect of it. Even when I'm playing it, yeah, it's kind of like, and I'm learning to play the piano, but it's similar in some ways. Like you arrange the tracks in a way, and you have like these little quirks that you have to, like, when you're playing them, you get them right. Otherwise, it falls apart. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment that, everybody's drawn to their own medium.
There's so much variety when it comes to different artists and the equipment that you can use. It's always a unique perspective, and there's always something different when you're looking at modular in general. There's so much variety, and I was like, for example, my FedEx delivery guy, I was talking to him before the show started about 6 p.m. tonight, and he and I chatted for about 10 minutes or so, and I mentioned that I'm doing Piqued and that it's a electronic music show, and he says, "What genre? Like jazz?" Like, You know, I think someone might be doing jazz modular. I haven't heard that yet, but I had to try to break it down to them and say, you know, there's some people doing techno, there's some people doing ambient, and there's so much variety of genre that it's not, you know, if I in the classification of electronic music, you really can't bring it down to one genre. There's so it's too broad to bring it into one place and say this is what electronic music sounds like, because it's so vast and different, and we've seen that change over the decades that electronic music has evolved since the 60s, and even probably before that. But that's when it really became, you know, its own idea in, I think, in mainstream anyway. But it's, I mean, what do you guys think about how would you explain electronic music to somebody?
It's a hard
It's a mind,
question.
Yeah.
I've been listening to Jamie Liddell's podcast a lot, Hanging Out with Audiophiles, I think it's called. And he talks to a lot of modular people, and or maybe I might be mixing him up with Mylar Melody's one, but like one of them always asks, like, what do you think the future of music and instruments and things, like, you know, to that extent. And it always gets into the discussion of electronic music, and just listening to that, I'm like, wow, everyone just has such a different experience of it. And yeah, I struggle a lot with it, because like technically I'm playing guitar most of the time, but I'm still making electronic music mostly. Like everything else I do is a drum machine and synthesizers. It's just like this limitless thing. And like just getting into samplers, and like the fact that the OPZ can, like the amount of sound that can come from this little device. Yeah, it just feels like totally limitless, which is sometimes super intimidating. But yeah, that was a full ramble.
That's all right. Emmy, how would you explain electronic music
I guess
to somebody?
yeah, my mind just is going back to the conversation we were just having. I feel like it's really like the genre is just referring to the gear that's used kind of ultimately. So it could really, it's just means that someone's using instruments that have some sort of electronic element about them. I guess. I don't know. I'm the non-musician here. Don't ask me.
I back that.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, and there's no wrong answer. There's no right or wrong answer in this. Anna, how would you explain electronic music to someone?
Oh, I don't know. That's really hard. I've always kind of put it. I don't know. It seems like it's similar to me to classical music in many ways. Just I don't know. I always compare the two in my head.
Well, Switched on Bach was very popular in the 60s.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think. Oh, yeah, that's a tough one, Corey. I don't have an answer for you.
No, that's all right. But that's
I mean,
all right.
It's an interesting, like, speaking to what you were saying, like something can be really, like a lot of minimalist music, for example, like you can listen to like Steve Reich or like a marimba piece or something, and then if you hear a version or something similar, I can't remember the artist, like Manuel, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the last name, but like minimalist electronic music, they can be like the same approach, like phased instruments or just like a couple two melodies that are like interweaving in and out, but just the difference in the instrument, like one being marimbas versus like a synthesizer. Like it does feel pretty distinct.
Synthesizer emulating marimbas.
Yeah, it does feel pretty distinct. Like I want to be like, oh, this is like classical minimalism, and the other one I'd be like, oh, this is like ambient electronica or something like that. But the line, I mean, it's really just like they're similar approaches in sort of a, yeah.
Definitely.
Stop
Yeah,
listening.
it's unclassified, I think, and I think it's always just going to be like that, which is fine. I think it's a good thing that it really can't be classified, that because it can encompass so many different perspectives at once, and that way everyone's included. So
Yeah, it feels like an inclusive genre because it can be so many things.
yeah, but as we see, if we go out to like some of the different shows, if you guys get to experience some of the live shows since they've been coming back, say like Resident, which is actually going to be happening November 3rd at Noise Bridge here in San Francisco, and also Resident Frequencies November 8th at the Balboa Theater, which I'll be at definitely. You'll see people come out with different equipment and have different ways of performing. Like, say, for example, last month in September, um, Mark Letzner, who's known as All Electric Kitchen or Electric Kitchen, he came out and he had a few synthesizers, but he also had, I think it was a stand, maybe some type of cello or maybe a cello, hard to say. It was like an electronic cello, and he had some other string instruments. I think he may have played a flute. It was amazing, but he performed them simultaneously with some loops that he had that he performed, and then he brought those pieces that he played, looped those, and just created layers on top. So he was able to bring in acoustics and electronic music all together at once, and it was phenomenal. It was such a wonderful performance, and that's something that you'll see. Some people will just play straight up synthesizers, say like Dylan 909. He plays all techno, all modular techno, which is really cool. Travarsi does that too. And then you'll see other people come in with some stuff you would never expect to see. I saw this one Resonant Frequencies, I think in maybe 2018, maybe 2019, and unfortunately I don't remember the name of the artist. This tall, skinny fellow came in and he was playing violin, and he had a jar of water hooked up with some contact mic inside or something. He would swish it, and it would resonate in the equipment that he had hooked up to it, and then he would play his violin on top of that. I don't know what he was doing. It was amazing. It was, but every time you go out to any of these live performances, you'll see someone take a different approach to creating music and have a different idea on how they want to make that composition. It's so fascinating to see the creativity that goes into what an artist wants to do. And it's always inspiring to go see the any live show you can get out to. So, and speaking of live shows, there's going to be Synthplex in Burbank, California, on October 27th through 30th, and our friend Frank Martin is going to be presenting a film. It was, let's see if I can find, I had it up here a second ago. So Frank Martin and his friends, I think Joachim Girard, Hugo Paris, and Travarsi, the four of them, I think earlier this year, they all got into a van or a bus, I should say, over 4 days, 4 producers, 4 landscapes, 4 solar powered productions. It was a solar powered production. Somehow they did this, and they drove out to different locations in isolated areas and created music together. And so he's put together a film, and he's going to have it presented at Synthplex in Burbank at the end of the month. which is going to be really cool. If anyone's going to be in the Burbank area. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it, but I wish I could. It sounds really cool. And then there's some other fun stuff happening this as well. Like as I said before, Resident Frequencies is happening on November 8th. Resident Electronic Music Monthly will be happening November 3rd at Noise Bridge. I have not been to Noise Bridge myself yet, but that's a new location for Resident. They used to be at the Laundry, and since then, that was pre-pandemic. Now they're at Noise Bridge, new location. I'll throw a link up for everyone to take a look at that so that you can find it as well. And also our friend Dylan909, he's going to be playing a show called SPAZ, Spaz, this Saturday. And he doesn't, now you have to text for the location. It's not publicly anywhere. So you have to actually text 888-901-1337 to find the location. It's probably going to be in the Bay Area somewhere. We will see. But that sounds like I'm sure it's going to be a good time because Dylan909 always puts on a very, very energetic, all modular techno set. It's always fun to see him perform. And he's a really nice, approachable guy. If you ever have any questions about what he's doing, feel free to talk to him. He's a really wonderful guy. And let me throw that other link up for everyone to see. Let's see if I did that right. Yeah. There's Synthplex. And what else? And I had a couple other announcements I wanted to get everyone to know about. Oh, so I listen to a lot of podcasts. Sounds like Matt and Emmy, you guys might listen to a couple of podcasts that I'm also listening to. My Melodies is a nice one too. But there's also Positive Modcast, which some of you may have heard of. It's Tim Held up in Seattle. Does a good show. And then there's another show about modular music called Inner Freak, and that's by a couple in Arizona. I think they're out of Phoenix. I don't quite remember. They're really nice people. It's Gelatonin and her partner. I can't remember his name at the moment. I'll remember. Sleep of Eons. That's him. Yeah, Inner Freak is a fun podcast. They talk to a lot of people from different perspectives. Recently, some of the recent episodes I listened to, they were talking to composers who play modular music and have been able to do a little bit of that in mainstream movies. Not to the extent I think that we're doing modular music, but they've been able to incorporate some of their compositions into bigger pieces.
Cool.
And of course, Data Cult Audio. If you haven't heard Data Cult Audio, to me, that's like one of the biggest inspirations, and I would say he's like the OG of anything modular music in the form of a podcast. It's all music. He doesn't talk to anybody. There's no audio pieces of anything. It's just all music. He just asks people to contribute music, and he throws it up. He's been doing it for maybe 5 years now. Pretty amazing. He's also out of Arizona. Great guy. If you ever see him around, A.M. Filipkowski, totally cool dude. And I like nature, fun stuff like that. So there's a fun podcast called Ologies, and it's just the science about anything that this person can interview a scientist about. So this is done by Allie Ward in LA, and her podcast Ologies, she talks to scientists. She just interviews different scientists, and there's no real topic. It's just she'll talk to someone who has studied rocks. She'll talk to someone who has studied volcanoes, avalanches, ants, anything. It's really a unique podcast that if you like anything about science and nature, it's a really fun podcast. And there was another one, I should mention really quick, that I cannot remember the name of. There's another fun one. Sorry, I have to look this one up just because I didn't write this one down. but she is a artist in, I think, South Dakota. Not that one. Right. History of modern. Oh yes, the history of modern art with Claire. That one's really fun. I'll just send you guys a link for that one. That one's really fun. She has a unique perspective, and I like what she does. There's another fun podcast. I know I listen to way too many podcasts called Art of the Score. Now these guys haven't done this. Basically, 3 different composers, and I think they're all Australian, and they haven't posted anything in a while. And I don't think they posted anything since like last year, or maybe even 2020, but because they're busy. But they'll break down a score from a major movie, like The Little Mermaid or Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they'll talk about the composers and their favorite pieces and break it down, and they'll even perform some of their favorite sections of that score. Really fun, insightful stuff. And I could go on. There's some other fun stuff I listen to as well. But as it's just about 9 o'clock, I should wrap things up. Matt, Emmy, Anna, thank you so much for coming on Piqued, making it a fun, unique night.
Thank you so much. This is really fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for
Definitely.
having me.
And are there any other? Is there anything I didn't get to ask you guys you wanted to mention?
I don't think so.
No. Are there any upcoming shows you guys are performing at or looking forward to attending?
We'll be doing more drifting. We don't have a date yet, but keep an eye out on socials and we'll post about it.
Yeah, our next one's going to be in a public space.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully. We don't know what that means yet, but we will hopefully know rapidly.
Yeah.
That sounds exciting. I'm looking forward to it. And Anna, anything you're attending soon?
Nope. But now that I've recorded all the tracks on my OPCs and played them for you, I can wipe them clean and make a new one.
Awesome.
Cool.
So,
We'll have to have
I'm gonna dig into that.
Excellent. We'll have to have you back on when you've got another album ready.
Oh, thank you, Corey.
It's always good to hear your music. Matt, Emmy, thanks again for coming on. It's great to finally talk to you guys in real time, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the Bay Area as there's some more shows coming up. I'll be getting out a little bit. I didn't have any time over the past. I wasn't anywhere for 4 months, just because of work. But that's changed, and my life's a little bit more free to actually get out there and actually be a part of the community again. So hopefully I'll get to see the two of you in person very soon.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm going to try to, I need to check my calendar, but I want to try to catch that Resident Frequencies show on November 8th for sure.
And the Resident.
Oh, please, yeah.
Both of the ones you mentioned.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Hopefully we'll see there.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Well, thank you so much again, everybody, and everyone watching at home. Thanks again for watching. I forgot to mention, Anna, earlier when you were mentioning how you don't have a traditional music background, that the OPZs are, very much a kind of your entry level tool for music. Lenny said, if that's your first instrument, then he is a tater tot.
Oh, she's not. Oh,
there's a lot of love from our community, and thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Before I ramble on to any more tonight, thank you, everyone. Stay home and stay safe. Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.